If Jesus is God and the common doctrine of the Trinity is true, why are there examples in the Bible of Jesus saying things like, my God, and things along those lines? That is what I'll discuss in today's video. Now, there's multiple examples all the way throughout the gospel accounts of Jesus referring to God as Father or God, etc. But in today's video, I wanted to focus on two examples which I think are the most significant. So in this example right here, for example, this is John chapter 20, verse 17. This is when Jesus has resurrected now and he's having an encounter with Mary Magdalene. And he says to her, touch me not. Why? For I am not yet ascended to my Father, but go to my brethren and say unto them, I ascend unto my Father and your Father, and my God and your God. And we'll look at an example right here. This is in the book of Revelation, which I think is a good one for us to discuss in a moment as well, where we see now Jesus in glorified state, now sending messages to the 7 churches in Asia through the Apostle John. Now, as you can see here, he says, to him that overcomes will he make a pillar in the temple of my God, he says, and he shall go no more out, and I will write upon him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, New Jerusalem, which comes down out of heaven from my God, and my new name. So in one verse there, if you want to put it like that, 4 times Jesus refers to God the Father as my God. And the reason I picked these 2 particular passages first and foremost, if you haven't realized this quite categorically, is because generally you'll hear people say things along the lines of, well, you know what, Jesus referred to God as my Father and my God because he was in earthly form. He was obviously in fleshly form at that particular point. And although that's actually true, why would Jesus continue to call God my God after he's obviously risen from the dead? Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this particular video on that. I'll leave another video for that. But what I wanted to do was look at a couple of verses in one particular passage in the Bible. And the passage I want us to spend a little bit of time on in today's video is this passage right here from the book of Hebrews. We're going to look at a couple of verses, and hopefully this will begin to help you understand why Jesus referring to God in that way isn't necessarily a big issue. You see, the fact of the matter is, Jesus was the one that put on flesh, not the Father. So the reason I say this is because if we make a big deal, or it's such a big deal about Jesus who put on flesh speaking in this way, it should be an even grander deal if the Father speaks in this way. But this is actually just what we see. So in this passage right here, in Hebrews 1, verse 8, going downwards, notice what it says. This is the Father, right, who's speaking about the Son. And what does he say? He says something in the first verse in 8, which is very powerful. He says, thy throne, O God, forever and ever, a scepter of righteousness, the scepter of thy kingdom. So we've looked at a couple of passages today of Jesus, right? The God-man, referring to God the Father as God, as my God. But here in Hebrews 1 verse 8, we're seeing the Father, who didn't put on flesh, referring to the Son as God. And it will get better as we continue to proceed down this particular passage. But the fact of the matter is, obviously, if God is referring to Jesus as God, right, what is he saying there? As it continues, verse 9, he says, you have loved righteousness and you've hated iniquity. Therefore God, thy God, has anointed thee with the oil of gladness above thy fellows. So in verse 8, God the Father is addressing the Son as God, right? Which, if we're going to take the same kind of approach that Jesus calling God is an issue, I think it would make sense to even be a bigger issue for the Father calling the Son God. But then in the next verse, he now refers to the Son and says, but God, thy God, right? So I can call you God's son, but at the same time, you have a God. And the reason this gets even more powerful is because in the next verse, what does the Father say? He says, and you, Lord, in the beginning, you have laid the foundation of the earth, and the heavens are the works of thine hands. They shall perish, but you remain, and they shall wax old as a garment, and as a vesture, as a vest, shall you fold them up. And they shall be changed, but you are the same, and thy years shall not fail. So notice in 3 verses, we see the Father call the Son God, then say the Son has a God, but then going back to say in verse 10 that he was Lord. Hebrews is drawing from multiple different Psalms, from Psalm 45 and from Psalm 102, especially in Psalm 102. The whole Psalm is about Jehovah creating the heavens and the earth. And the Father here is applying this and saying, you, O Lord, to the Son. And I know analogies aren't the best when it comes to describing God, because nothing can truly describe God. It would be like 3 board directors who all had complete control over the company. And one of the directors said, I'm going to see my director. And then one of the other directors turned around and said, I'm going to see my director. You see, they could all speak in that way, even though they all have equality. Hopefully that video helps you answer today's question about why Jesus would ever refer to God as my God, when we see examples in the book of Hebrews of the Father speaking in similar ways as well. And it wasn't like the Father was saying he made Jesus like a God. I'd be interested to know what you have to say in the comment section below. But until next time, thanks for tuning in, and until next time, see you soon.